Here are the steps that Donald Trump has taken to create a war with Iran. First, he tore up the Iran nuclear agreement.
I am announcing today that the United States will withdraw from the Iran nuclear deal.
Second, he has escalated crippling sanctions against Iran.
The sanctions kicking in at midnight Sunday target Iran's oil exports, banking, and shipping, even though UN inspectors say Iran is still complying with the nuclear deal.
The United States will pursue additional sanctions, tougher than ever before.
Third, he designated Iran's military as a terrorist organization.
Secretary of State Mike Pompeo has announced that the U.S. is designating the Iranian Revolutionary Guard as a terror group.
Today, the United States is continuing to build its maximum pressure campaign against the Iranian regime. I'm announcing our intent to designate the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, including its Quds Force, as a foreign terrorist organization.
With this terror designation, the U.S. can sanction pretty much anybody who talks to or deals with or has any business whatsoever with the IRGC.
And fourth, he continues to deploy more and more U.S. troops to the region.
Just moments ago, the Pentagon authorized an additional 1,000 American troops to the Middle East in response to growing concerns over Iran.
The Trump administration announced yesterday that a U.S. aircraft carrier and a bomber task force are being sent to areas closer to Iran.
Yes, there will indeed be hell to pay. Let my message today be very clear. We are watching, and we will come after you.
We've got to stop Donald Trump from starting a war with Iran. I'm asking you to join me and support my legislation, the No More Presidential Wars Act.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the one and the only Awakener podcast. This is a very, very different podcast. And if you listen to it, within 5 minutes, you can identify that this might be well off the charts for a lot of you. And if this is your first time, I recommend listening to a lot of my material because you're never going to truly understand what is happening because so many things have happened. There has been so many years that have gone by, and clearly something is up. So I'm going to try to do my best to explain it to you. The best resource for all this is theawakener.ca. So before I begin, just want to announce that one more time, theawakener.ca. The link is actually in the top of the video. Go there. You can see all the stuff that's happening with links to articles and everything that is going on. It'll blow your mind. What is happening very simply is that there was a power structure changing war that was going to be pinned on the US complex and the Western world because we fell asleep at the wheel. In 1980, we could easily identify our enemies. Our enemies were hardline Islamics. Our enemies were communists. And the Western world was pretty much in sync with identifying that these were, in fact, our enemies. Now, if you talk to the populace, well, 50%, they're mentally gone. They are completely demoralized, as Yuri Bezmenov said. And demoralization is a process where propaganda has happened and these people have been subjected to, and they've kind of been changed their values from the inside out, which means they no longer support the industrial complex that protects them and their right to basically have like a computer and like a podcast like this or voice their opinions online. And they actually embrace the side that completely wants to stop this, not knowing what is really happening. Convince your enemies that their industrial complex is actually the most evil of all and that we should disarm ourselves. And if you talk to a lot of these people, especially the crazy right and the crazy leftists, they all believe the same thing. Oh, there's an alliance with Israel and the United States of America. Well, duh. Genius. You're so smart. It's far greater than that. This complex has protected your rights for a number of years, going back generations, actually, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. This complex has defeated the Nazis. It defeated the Japanese. It won in World War I, and it won in wars before that to stop this world from basically imploding on itself and bringing about totalitarianism. But that doesn't mean that this fight is over. In this current generation, the war is right in front of you and has been for quite some time. So before we begin, I just want to go back to that video I showed you at the start. That video was Tulsi Gabbard in 2019 condemning Donald Trump and his plans to take out Iran. Now, if we go back to 2019, 2020, 2021, the hot topic of Iran was already starting. People were kind of like, something's going on because Iran clearly doesn't like Trump. They want to kill him. At least that's what the FBI tells us and etc. And Tulsi Gabbard at this time, really honestly, the level of classification she had access to at that time was very, very basic. But once, obviously, she was appointed to head of the DIA, which I told you is the utmost intelligence agency, which supersedes the CIA and provides all the classified intel. It's basically military intelligence. And sometimes the president of the United States does not even know all the secrets of the US complex. When she was put in charge of this, wow, all of a sudden it all makes sense. This is all happening, ladies and gentlemen, because I theorize that Kim and the family of North Korea are actually the moles, which means the communists have gone ahead with planning this power structure changing war on the Western world since 1989 with faking their collapse and Soros, but they've completely forgot to end the Korean War. And this has obviously allowed America to spend probably hundreds of millions of dollars infiltrating and trying to turn the family from within. And it is my point of view that the family are indeed informants informing the US of what is happening. Now, I informed you way back in the day that I think this all started because this little birdie machine with Kim notified the US complex that the US uranium had arrived on their soil. This set out a giant investigation, which we are witnessing now, the plan to save the world, where Iran and North Korea are in possession of the US uranium. And why is that? Well, you can't do a power structure changing war involving nuclear weapons and not expect payback if you're going to be implicated in this war. So you might have an institute, or you might be able to put in control a government that works for you. Clearly, if you haven't noticed by now, nobody in the European Union or Canada wants to come to the defense of the USA and Israel. They don't want to get involved in this war with Iran. Why is that? Well, I told you they're all going to be implicated in this war and assisting Iran and North Korea in this cause, which is giving the US uranium to these nations. And these nations are being aided with Vladimir Putin and Xi, arming their space programs, obviously miniaturized EMPs in space on satellites to basically cut our electrical grid and do a power structure changing war. Now, this is a lot to kind of take in. And I'm not going to go over why the Iron Curtain class was faked. And again, people are kind of sick of my explanation, but it's all happening for that reason. So where are we now with Tulsi Gabbard? Well, Tulsi Gabbard obviously knows that Iran has access to the US uranium. And how does she know this? Well, she knows this because she obviously has North Korea's intel that has told her this. And how do we know that North Korea is working for us and not the communists? Because it sure seems that there is a regime over there that is killing and slaughtering and starving its own for the purpose of working with Vladimir and working with Xi. And I'm going to tell you right now that all things kind of happening right now are not really what they appear to be. So the first case of this is I'll take you back to 2004, which I've described before, that I believe that Israel knew that Syria had a nuclear facility starting on that river and bombed it because Kim Jong-un and the family basically blew up a train on the north part of North Korea. Now, after this explosion took place, you would note, you can do some research on this online. I'm not making this all up. After this explosion took place, obviously the US and North Korea analyzed this explosion, and they could see that Syria was sending military to the region to take the bodies of Syrian nuclear scientists back home and bury them. This led to an entire can of worms, obviously, knowing that Syria had a nuclear program and planning the bombing. So I will tell you this right now. Is it possible that Kim is a mole? Is it possible that ship that sunk in the Mediterranean, is it possible that Kim informed the US complex of all this? Is it possible that maybe Tulsi Gabbard didn't have access to all the top classification details when she was a congresswoman, and now that she's head of the DIA, wow, she knows everything? Is it possible that Kash Patel and Dan Bongino, when they all say, I'm going to tell you everything when I get in power, and then as soon as they get in power, oh, we can't tell you everything? Is it possible that there is something deeper and darker happening than people realize? Now, let's go back to regime change in Iran, okay? Because this is what it all goes down to. As I told you before, I believe that Iran and regime change is going to take some time. It is not going to be something that instantly takes place, mainly because if you study kind of the war games of what these Muslim countries have done to us, is that they know they're fighting an advanced modern enemy with lots of technology and lots of missiles. They're not really trying to compete on a one-to-one basis with as many missiles as the US or as Israel. They're not trying to have the best tanks like them either. They're trying to bring the US complex in to fatigue and drain them out. If there is going to be a larger war that involves Russia and China, and it's going to accelerate to that point, Iran would love to drain the US of most of its missiles and Israel of most of its missiles before this happens. So think about it, ladies. This is very much like a tug of war that is happening as we speak. Now, what do I think that is going to happen? Well, as I've explained to you, the leaders of the European Union and Canada, and obviously the establishment government that works for Soros, are going to be involved in exploitation of the truth, which means they're going to be implicated. Let's pretend that Israel and the United States of America win this war, and they dig up Fordow, they dig up all Iran's nuclear facilities. They're going to tell you that Iran had weapons, and they're going to show you exactly how many they had and what was happening. And people are going to know the truth, ladies and gentlemen. And people are going to know that their government here, that seems to control us and is doing this agenda for whatever purpose, is being nefarious and actually working for our enemies. So this will really be something that makes sense all in the very end. And I fully expect whatever Iran has, whether it's an EMP in space, which I speculated on, or other nuclear missiles, that don't be surprised if Iran is forced to use these all. And why is that? Well, because if Israel and the US win this war and they all tell you, there's no point hiding this lie anymore. This is basically what is the truth, ladies and gentlemen, is a giant Soviet Islamic attempt to engineer a covert takeover of the Western world, which means if you can't defeat America and Israel in an all-out thermonuclear war, you might as well devise a plan to attack and kill from within. And this has been a plan not kind of engineered in the last 6 months. It hasn't been engineered since 2019. This has been something engineered since 1980. The collapse of the Soviet Union, the arming of Iran with Kazakhstan giving nuclear missiles or nuclear bombs to Iran in 1992 as purported by the LA Times. Obviously, Bill Clinton's presidency where they set up 9/11. Bill Clinton's presidency where North Korea made huge steps forward into achieving nuclear weapon status, which was largely benefited by Bill Clinton doing what he's doing. And obviously today, ladies and gentlemen, in regards to the Epstein files, Barack Obama's presidency, and why on earth did Joe Biden not release any of these Epstein files when it could have implicated everybody? Nothing is as it seems, ladies and gentlemen, but it'll all make sense in the end. Now, I'm just trying to think in my head if there's anything else I want to cover before I go over this. Yes, there is. The last thing I really want to cover before I let you guys go for a couple days is really Bill and Hillary's testimony in front of Congress, or is it the Senate? It's one of the two. As you can, it's all nonsense. So Maxwell, the daughter, was literally at Chelsea Clinton's wedding. The fact that she can go and say, well, I had no knowledge of him. I've never met him. We'd had nothing like in common. It's all nonsense. So don't be surprised if all this is going to backtrack. And you can kind of see these leaders are starting to be implicated now in the European Union. Don't be surprised if something major happens very soon that is going to lead to an indictment that is going to surprise a lot of people. And really, the last thing before I go, we've talked about Epstein, is really Russia and China and what they're going to do soon. Now, as you know, the Soviets have spent so much time setting this all up. They spent so much time helping Iran and North Korea with their nuclear programs over the last 30 to 40 years. That this is really something that if, obviously Trump and Netanyahu win this war and they do dig up these nuclear facilities and show people the truth, that Russia is going to be implicated in this war. So don't be surprised if Russia has to protect the conspiracy. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, how deep does this conspiracy go? Well, it's very simple. George Soros's foundations control every aspect of government in the Western world. They are KGB collaborators. They control all the government in Ukraine. You can Google Open Society Foundations in Ukraine. There's a specific name for it. It's a long one. It's IEA or something like that. They control all the government in Ukraine. So effectively, Zelensky and crew are a front working for Soros, who works for the Russians. And you'll all make sense in this. And Russia's in a perspective right now, or in a position where they almost can't even end this war because they're just going to completely collapse after all this. So interesting times do await us. We're really going to see what Iran is hiding, and regime change takes time. It's not going to be something that is absolutely instantaneous. But like you can see from my previous shows, the leaders in Canada and the European Union, that they don't want to help out. They don't want to get involved. And they're all freaking out right now because of everything that I've told you. So stay tuned, listen to some of my old shows, and we'll see what comes next, ladies and gentlemen. If something major happens and there's no power or electricity, who knows where I'll be? I'll be here, but I might not be able to record a show. So don't worry. I'll continue doing this as long as I possibly can. Anyways, that's all for now. Take care.